Good morning, buddy. We got snow on the ground.
Do ya?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, lucky dog. It's December 15th, 2022. Welcome aboard, everybody. Listen to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 642.
Yep. We got a little snow.
Snow. Define little snow. Like we got an inch or we got less than an inch?
It's an inch. They've got 4 inches in Madison, and they're closing schools. I'm like, what?
Oh, my God. They have gotten soft up there.
Oh, my goodness, dude.
4 inches. That used to be like a dusting back in the day. It's straight frigid cold here. Like super windy. Went for a run this morning. It was, I say super cold, but the wind makes it feel like it's like -20 no matter what the temperature is. But it was straight cold. And I was looking at the forecast for next week because we're heading to Nashville to spend time with my mom and family. And the day we depart, it's supposed to be -2.
What?
Peace out, Overland Park. I'm out. But I think we're supposed to get some snow. But yeah, it's going to get straight cold. -5 has been like my limit. But yeah, it's Christmas time. And hope you guys have. If you're gonna have a white Christmas, hey, listen, it better snow like hard, like none of this flurry stuff or the freezing rain. Get the legit stuff. Make the kids happy. Make everybody else happy. But the closing school thing, that's just that's soft.
We had when I was growing up, you needed 2 feet. I'm not kidding you, dude. I was talking to my mom about this morning, and I would lay in bed going, and it was snowing all night. I'd be like, "Is it closed?" And she's like, "We're listening to the radio," because that was how they did it.
Dude, back in that's what.
Oh yeah, Earl Nightingale would come on and go, "Well, it's official. Beloit Public Schools are closed," and I would always wait for the announcement. She's like, "No, it's time to go. We got to go." I'm like, Jesus, foot of snow, and they're just like, "Nope."
I wasn't. I didn't live. Grew up in Nashville, so we didn't ever have like real legit snow. Like it was very rare. But and you lived in Nashville, you saw like if there was a chance of rain,
done.
Like, or call off schools, let them out early. And so I wasn't back in the radio days, but we did have to watch the news in the early morning or like late at night, and they have like the bottom line that kind of scrolls through those schools. And of course, like right when you're alphabetical, in alphabetical order, your school comes up and you like sneeze or like some distraction. You look back and you're like, I missed it. Totally missed it. Now you get to wait like 20 more minutes for all the scrolling to go by the bottom line just to see and just to hope that it's done. Now everybody's spoiled. You get text messages and like automated from the night before, or you probably had like a phone tree back in the day. All right, Miss Darrington's class, you're gonna call the parents and you're gonna call Miss Jane's class and like get it all hooked because you do all
right. Yeah. Now they probably send you free scarves.
Hey, better not. Better not be sending out scarves or turtlenecks.
Be safe.
Hey, welcome.
Be safe.
We appreciate you all, and do hope you have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. It's first time tuning in. Welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe, and just podcasts in general. Time is very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as coaches and athletes ourselves, but also as human beings on this planet. We also talk a lot about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner-level triathletes looking to their very first 5K or sprint, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to the world championships, and everyone in between from all over the country. And we will use the feedback loop we have with them and our conversations that are driven in Training Peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to use that as the discussion of the day. We also utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question and let you right in. Great community, awesome people, fantastic information. So don't be a lurker, be a participant, and contribute. That's what be a contributor. And there's a lot of great people in there that are willing to spend their time to give you, honestly, like sarcastic, free, thought out, wisdom filled answers to help you and benefit you on your journey. So be a part of that group. And again, if you got questions, ask them. We go in there about once a month and do a Q&A. And we'll do that next week as we kind of lead into the Christmas break, as we try to get ahead. Everyone always has kind of like burning questions that they have towards the end of the year and then beginning of the next year. So we'll go in there, but that's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's an important one. And that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, that's a good one, man.
As I was talking about the Facebook group, we had one of our athletes post in our closed group for just our active athletes that we coach, and it was like a paragraph or two from Brett Sutton. It's very, very similar to things we talk about on the podcast a lot about, where does triathlon fit in your life and what's it doing for you, and and are you getting getting things out of it, but one of the important pieces that I got from it, and that I think we all need to be reminded of, as we find ourselves, bemoaning or complaining about, world championship moves or races or this and that, is, triathletes get called selfish for a reason, and I think generally people are selfish, but, that we shouldn't always do kind of a self audit, like we talked about earlier this week about, what is the sport doing for us? How can we get better? What races, what race management company gives out the best swag? I also think it's incredibly important to ask yourself the question, what am I doing for the sport? Am I a good ambassador for the sport? And that doesn't include signing up for one of these ambassador teams. You're not an ambassador for the sport. You're just getting free gear. Like, an ambassador for the sport means someone that is using their platform and their reach and the example that you set to benefit the sport that you love. And that is something that I take very seriously. And how we've done the podcast the last 6 years, something that we really strive with our own athletes, to impress upon them that this isn't, they always say, leave the world better than the way you found it. The same thing goes with how we live our life and how we treat other people. It shouldn't be a selfish endeavor. It should be one, where we give freely, and we're not just looking for me. What can this race do for me? And complain and just frankly just bitch about first world problems that the rest of the world probably laughs at. And really what's 100%. Important, in a sport that we want to benefit as many people as often as possible across the globe, that starts with us. You can blame Ironman for as many things as you want to, but when it comes to growing things at a grassroots level, it comes down to the age grouper that lives in the town 30 miles, outside of the big city. That's just a fact, and how we treat people and how welcoming we are and how inclusive we are as a community of athletes in a sport that can, I believe, greatly impact people. I mean, we know this firsthand, how just unbelievably important triathlon has been in our life and how it's impacted us in a great way. And I know, and in some way we've been, stewards of the sport by doing this podcast and coaching and working with athletes and having a team, that hopefully does the same thing, that we've benefited and help progress it in certain areas. And I just think it's just an important reminder, I think, in the time of year and the Christmas spirit. Sometimes that's me. What am I getting? Well, it's like, we should give, always give more than you receive. And I think we often get trapped in that, is what can you do for me all the time versus, one of the best things in life is, or the phrase that, the more you give, the more you receive. And I know that is 100% factual in regards to mine and likely yours, and how much, the conversations we have with our own athletes, online and offline and in person, and they always, talk about at camps, thank you guys for what you do. And I'm like, dude, like, you have no idea, like, the benefit that having a team and having these athletes in our lives and even doing the podcast has had such a positive influence. So again, just a reminder, as we set off into, a time of year where it's usually me, in a sport that can be me, give, and be creative in how you can help grow the sport. So it's around the 20 years to keep impacting people the way you want it to impact you.
Yeah. I look at us as kind of a neighborhood podcast. It's just, we have been consistent, and we've met a ton of people, and we've touched a lot of people, and they've touched us, and tons of people have. And it really is about, it's kind of that Bukowski quote again, you change the world one person at a time. And I think that's how we sort of live this thing. And we're never, pushing to make, some big splash out there or whatever. Just keep coming back and really trying to remind people that, we got to do the best things for our body and our mind and stuff like that. And, just to kind of be there. And as coaches, we're very open to communication, and things keep going back and forth. And that's what we love, man. It's like touching people. And I think that is the way to go about it. You can sit there and read big news stories and be like furious about it, but like really just go out and say hi to your neighbor, and remind them that we're both human. We're both human. We may disagree on some things. And I always think about that, it's like, I feel like 3 years ago, neighbors were just like kind of hanging out and talking shit, and they didn't really know what was going on. And now everybody's got, some sort of like wedge between them or something. And these are people that you used to hang out with or talk to a lot. And yeah, I really do believe that, anything that is going to be healed in this world or in our own lives begins with just communicating, or like, touching one person at a time, and just being a good person, man. So,
just being a good, I mean, it really is as simple as that. I mean, we have a topic for today, but I do think it's a great reminder, and it's like one of the very first glimpses I got of this when I used to, we are an Ironman Tri Club, and we have athletes and they participate all over and do certain things. And I remember when they first started the Tri Club program, they had like a Tri Club captain or leaders Facebook group, and I was in there initially, and I left after about a month, because all it was when are our club members going to get early, access to this race? We didn't see a discount code at this. When I'm like, what the fuck? Like, A, you're supposed to be a leader. Okay. 2, you're supposed to grow the sport. Like, and that's just not how it's supposed to work. And it's not how you're supposed to be, to be a leader in a sport that you love. It shouldn't be to, beg for discounts and why can't we get this? It's like your job is to grow, and I think we all fall back into those traps of me, and being selfish when, being generous, not just with your money, but with your time and with your thoughts, and how you can, really impact people, because the beautiful circle of that is, you can directly, anybody, right, can be, that's why I hate the term influencer, is we all influence people, whether you like it or not, by what you do. And going back to like, Charles Barkley was like, I'm not a role model. I'm like, you are, like whether you like it or not, we're all role models to people. We all influence people, and we all have a platform. Could be big, could be small, could be specific, could be general, but we all have a platform, and it's how you use it. But the great circle or cycle of it is, you use who you are to benefit another person. And when you see them get benefited, you become a better person. And then by being a better person, you impact more people in a better way, in different ways. So everything comes back to you. It always comes back. And that's something that, we've tried to really, keep close to our hearts and in our minds when it comes to growing our business and working with athletes and doing camps or giving things away or doing this. It's like, it all comes back. And that's not the reason you do it. It's the reason is just to help people. And if you can have that as like your core, and obviously everyone wants to help themselves. We all do. Like we're all selfish to an extent. We all have an ego, but always kind of keeping that kind of baseline effort of, I just want to help people. I want to help grow the sport. And sometimes that means sacrificing your own time or to go volunteer here to do that instead of, it's so funny. Like I always hear people complaining about lack of volunteers at races, and I always want to be like, how many of you that are complaining about no volunteers at races have volunteered at a race you didn't participate in?
Yeah.
And I'd probably say it's like, most of them haven't, because they're always racing, and so again, one of those things just to keep in mind for 2023 is we're all moving into a new year, which is exciting, which is also really just weird to me, that it's a new year, it's a change in the calendar, but everyone is super pumped to have a new year and to start things fresh. You and I, myself specifically, kind of go off the grid, and that started yesterday at 5:00 for me. I disconnect from Facebook and text messages and emails and just kind of like be quiet, but not quiet as in like lazy in my recliner watching Christmas movies on Netflix. It's time to work. right? And you alluded to this in that great quote you had on Tuesday, where it wasn't this, but it's like, champions are made in the winter. And some of the best time, it's a slow time for athletes, meaning most people they're not totally checked out. You got the type A athletes who if they didn't have structure would have a panic attack because they love having structure. They wouldn't know what to do with themselves. But the most people are like, it's end of the year. I've had a long year. It's time to chill. Right. And so there's less demands, but as a coach and as a coach / as we technically are, even though we don't think about it sometimes, a company that has multiple coaches and works with hundreds of athletes across the globe is, when you get quiet time and there's not a ton of races, and if there's not a ton of races, that means there's not a ton of extra emails and extra input from athletes and then extra output from us, which takes energy and time. Like, that's time to hunker down. And every year we do this in November, December, we kind of audit ourselves as coaches and as a company, and what direction are we headed? Are we doing things correctly? And even if we are doing these correctly, can we do it better? And if we can do it better, can we deliver it better? Right? And can we make our athletes better? Because that's the goal, right? For everything. And I think it also helps that we're athletes ourselves, you and I, and that we understand the mentality that our athletes have, which is, I had this, we went kind of like C26 white glove experience yesterday in our athlete Zoom call. That was like 90 minutes. And I went through in insane detail, honestly, about like, where we're going this year, things that have changed, our periodization, our training blocks, kind of the program we're going to use, athlete assessments and all these kind of things. And it can be overwhelming, at times, but it's important. And one of the things that I said was, one of the interesting things about being a coach and working with athletes is that, an athlete doesn't do a 70.3 and they're like, oh, dude, I crushed it. 30-minute PR. I'm so happy. I still want to work with you for the next 4 years, but I don't care what happens.
Yeah,
I'm happy.
Right.
Like, never happens. They're always like, okay, I wonder if I can take off 45 minutes next time. Or, I wonder if I can go sub 5. So you're never done. So as coaches, you're never done. So I do think, one of the benefits of being an athlete or having been an athlete that we have is that, we understand that. And as coaches and as a company, that is also something, that we strive for. And we went into great detail about that yesterday. I think we'll talk a little bit about it today, but it's about that constant pursuit of getting better. And for me, at least, and I know you as well, is like when it's quiet, it's like, I'm going off the grid, but it's more like, it's not like Netflix and chill. It's more like, what is it, Rocky 2, when he like goes off to like the farmland with the snow and's like dragging around, lumber and doing sit-ups on the, from the rafters in the barn. I don't look like that. I don't act like that. And it's not going to be that tough, but that's pretty much the best analogy I can think of that also, makes me feel good about myself, my dad bod, but also the amount of work that goes into setting our athletes up for success for 2023.
Yeah, man. That call yesterday, I mean, there's a lot that goes on really behind the scenes.
Rocky 4. That's going to bug me. I know I'm get like 6 emails. Think it was that's 2. Like, oh, actually it was Rocky 3.5.
It was whatever. I think it was the Drago one.
Yeah, it was Drago. 4, yeah, probably. That's all I remember.
Wow, what a great.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Man, that makes me. Makes me want to watch that stuff again. I wonder if it holds up. I'm sure it does, sort of. But yeah, behind the scenes, the stuff like the Zoom call yesterday, and we had a ton of athletes on there listening, and really what you gave was kind of a comprehensive, really thorough group, a bunch of information about how to actually train for this sport, and I mean broke it down into different blocks and categories and different things and progressions and all kinds of stuff like that. So I think that's really cool. And like you said, everyone wants to get faster. Everyone wants to get better. And we're always looking for ways to make that work for athletes and for us to, because what we do communicate with athletes a lot, either by text or phone or email and things like that through Training Peaks and all that. But because people always ask, how's that work? And, is it, is there communication? Is it, personalized? And yeah, I mean, it really is. And there's a lot of that going on. And yesterday in that call, I mean, you went through a ton of stuff that would, that call alone really answers a ton of questions that I'm sure that people have about this sport, and it's a lot of information, but that kind of stuff is what we keep trying to do and build out things better so that they can train better, but we can also, get better at working with them and that kind of thing. And I think that's really cool because, I think we're both on the same page. We always have these pre-calls and stuff like that. And we're always talking about, the basic motto is what more can we do for our athletes today? And I just think that stuff like this and going into the new year and, we've been doing this podcast 6 years and every year we come through. And I think that, you've been working on some training structures and things like that and workouts and different ways to look at workouts, more communication, more clarity, all kinds of different stuff like that. That's really awesome. And I'm looking forward to implementing it with my athletes. And I think they're pretty stoked after watching, reactions yesterday and everything like that. So I don't know how you want to go talk about some of the stuff you were talking about yesterday, but feel free to.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go. It's going to be hard to kind of like go through, and without. I did a lot of screen sharing yesterday, but I think one of the biggest pieces, and we touched on it at the beginning of this cast is, I think one of the most important pieces that all, as a coach, that I take very, very seriously is that coaches are teachers. That you could interchange those titles in a variety of ways. And as a coach, you're a teacher, right? And that's one of the most important aspects of when I have athletes, that ask about becoming a coach, or other coaches that, talk about coaching, is like, you're a teacher. It's your job to not just give, but to teach, right? And to educate your athletes, not in a way that is dictator-like, but that's informative, and actually, causes and creates more questions, from them. And you don't want too many questions because, sometimes you can over question things, but you want their own juices to get flowing, because that also means they're bought and they're excited. Right. And they're in tune with their body. They're in tune with the training. They feel informed. One of the biggest questions we have when we get, new athlete inquiries is, I really want to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's one of the biggest things, as a coach, it's been coaching full time for 7 years and been coaching, athletes for, 10, 12 plus. Sometimes I forget that because I can look at it and just know intuitively, not because I'm a savant, but because I've been doing this for so long with so many people, I just know what to do next. But one of the most exciting pieces of coaching is teaching, right? And getting and informing your athletes, because an informed athlete is a better athlete. They make better decisions. They're more bought in. They're more consistent, right? Because they're more bought in, and they're more accountable to themselves because they know what they're doing, why they're doing it, and the structure of it. And so we did it. And I don't obviously hop on any other coach's Zoom calls, but I would be hard, I think. I'd be shocked to find that many other coaches that do a weekly Zoom call with their athletes that answer Q&As or go through in such detail like we did yesterday to kind of like pull behind the curtain. Hey, here's what we're going to do next year. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's why we're going to do it. Here's how detailed things are going to be. Here's, a sample training block with, not because I think people get confused. Like, athletes love, because I was texting with an athlete before this and they were like, hey, that I don't coach. We're really, really close friends. And she was like, hey, are you back training again? I was like, I'm just running a lot, and she was like, she's like, what have you been doing? I was like, I've been working a ton. She's like, why? And I was like, well, I've been doing this. She's like, training and why I've been doing it. It's to make our athletes better and to make us better. And one of the ways you can do that is to show things and to be more specific with how we got here, right? Because in a bunch of different podcasts that I've talked before, coaching, and at least my philosophy as a coach is 80% of what we do is research and evidence-based training. It just always is. Now, some of that also changes, right? There might be new evidence, new research that comes out that either contradicts, a part of training or makes you think differently about why you've been doing something, right? And then the other 10% or 15% might be, from your experience as an athlete and your experience in working with other athletes and what you've seen from them and what, what training sessions work, what training blocks work, and it comes from experience, right? And then the other 10% or 5%, however you want to, manipulate it, is you just make shit up. But when you make shit up, that's how you get the other feedback from athletes when you've tried something new. And so we've always taken that approach, but within those percentages, things always change, right? And things always shift. And one of the one of the things in the piece I've always been fascinated by, it seems way over my head, but I've always thought there was some value in it. But I also think there is a huge piece of it that doesn't apply, or that's missing. When you talk about the world that we're living in, and how, you got self-driving cars, and you got robots in factories, and you got, artificial intelligence, that one of the things you'll never be able to replicate. And we've mentioned this before when we talk about December rules, is like, having a cup of coffee with the person face to face.
Right.
You can Zoom, you can text, you can share whatever, but it's still not the same, right, as having a conversation, knowing a person. So you've got, there's a lot of training platforms and training algorithms out there that athletes use that are all artificial intelligence based, right? Or for the most part. And I see value in that, because I see, progressions that they're outlined and specific and help the athlete. But it's the other piece, the personal piece, right? What do I know about you? Not about what your critical swim pace is in swimming, not what your FTP is on the bike, not what your running 30-minute threshold is and your zone is on the run. That's knowing the inside, the ability, right, the physiological piece of an athlete. It's not knowing the person, right? And that's always been something that we have always been very adamant and very steadfast in, is that you coach the person first and the athlete second. And that's where I think the piece of the artificial intelligence and the programming and assessing and how they do things misses that step. Is yes, you can have an intro to that and then base it off that, but also people are always what? We're always changing, right? Yeah. Stressed, more stressed, and there are a bunch of ways to monitor that. But what I want to do is kind of create an assessing program, if you will, where it was kind of like AI meets empathy, and it's combined, right? It's intentional. It's it's performance based. It's research based, very specific, and how you periodize things and the progressions, and the athlete can see that. But the biggest piece and the initial piece is, as a coach, is what do you know about the athlete to be true, right? What do you, not from a physiological standpoint, because that comes second. And I say, oh, well, you're coaching athletes who want to be great. Well, let me give you an example. I know Tommy triathlete, and I'm assessing him to create his training block. And I know that he is a solid cyclist. He really needs to work on swimming. That's his weakness. And he's a decent runner. I know that. Okay. But that's not me knowing Tommy. That's me knowing the triathlete version of Tommy triathlete. Okay. That's not me knowing Tommy. But what do I know about Tommy to be true from my interactions with him, with his initial email, with initial questionnaire, or if he's a long-term athlete, like most athletes are, it's like, what do I know about his life right now? What has changed in the last little bit? What do I see that's happened in the last year? Oh, well, I know that Tommy's weakness is to swim, but I know he doesn't also like to swim. Can you force an athlete to swim? No. You can prod them and encourage them to swim, but you can't make them swim. So what's the best route for me to get Tommy to swim? Which is his weakness, right? That impacts the bike, that impacts the run. How can I get Tommy to swim? Is it giving him a swim block where it's 4 to 5 swims a week, right? To where that's going to make him better, which it will. But is Tommy going to see that and think, oh, dude, I'm ready to go. I've always hated swimming, and that's why I suck at it, and that's why I'm not very good at it. As soon as I see 4 or 5 swims, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to want to swim 4 more times a week than I have in the last 2 years. No. Tommy's going to get intimidated. Tommy's going to get frustrated. Tommy's going to feel overwhelmed. And you know what Tommy's going to do? Probably swim less, right? Yeah. So as a coach, you think, what's the best way for me to get Tommy to get up to swimming 5 is to get Tommy to swim a few weeks at one where he is kind of his happy space, and then prod him and move him into swimming twice a week, and then twice a week for a few weeks, and then swimming 3 times a week. Artificial intelligence doesn't do that. It doesn't know Tommy personally like that. Yes, it can see trends, but it's knowing people's personalities, measuring their weaknesses and strengths, not just from a from a physiological standpoint, what the data says and what they are, but also their strengths and weaknesses as a person, right? Or do they have the ability to sustain this much volume this early? No, so don't give it to them. Right. Can they thrive, on this kind of volume this early season? Yes. Then you give it to them, right? And it's how much and it's how when. It's like one of the very, very, very. It's a more streamlined version of what you and I used to call mapsology. right? Like it really is kind of fascinating that it's taken us this long to kind of figure it out. Is that one of the first things you and I talked about when I left the ranch, the place I went to go recover, is how the mental, emotional, physical, and for some people, the spiritual aspects of their life impact everything, right? And so we sit down, we'd have conversations, and every day when I go to a primary group, we would have to rate ourselves on a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual level. And what that did was it told our therapist, told our counselor where we are today, right? It's not just hey, where are you on a scale 1 to 10? Well, because dude, that could be all kinds of things, right? Like you could be feeling physically a 10 out of 10, but if you're emotionally and mentally a 2, you can't deal with a person the same way, right? And obviously you can leave off the S for spirituality for some people, but it was a scoring system based on a ranking, like rate yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually today. And obviously the scores combined, the scores weighted, and it drives you to a scoring system along with a specific workout that's designed to complement that score. There might be a run workout that's a 20, a bike workout that's an 8, and a swim workout's at the 9. Well, obviously the score is weighted, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, because some of them impact each other more than others. And then the score you have that's closest to that goes to the workout you're supposed to do for today. So it's kind of like a happy medium blend of that, but we're not working with strangers, right? So it doesn't work that way, and I implemented this with athletes, 6-7 years ago when I implemented, they were like, dude, I love this. Like, I love it. I see value in it. And I never stuck to it. And when we were talking about ways to do things better this year and how to assess athletes and how to make things, how to get them more bought in and feel more educated and feel more empowered. Like we did a Facebook poll, which I was kind of shocked, actually. I said, when you open your Training Peaks in January and you see 4 weeks at a time, everything brand new swim sessions, new bike sessions, new more specific run sessions, string sessions, are you going to be overwhelmed or are you going to be pumped? Because you're going to see it all in the map on how everything progresses from, a different, interval increases, from 6 30 seconds to maybe 10 30 seconds, less rest here, lesser here, repeatable sets. 80 to 85% of the feedback was, I would love that. And, then obviously you're going to have some that's like, that seems intimidating. And then some, that I was kind of joking. I was like, how would you feel? And I said, you would feel nothing. You would feel nothing because you wake up every day and then check your Training Peaks. You don't look at it that far in advance. And those people are the weirdos. But that told me, it's like, there is huge value in a coach working to show their athletes to where they need to go. But then it's up to the athlete to do the work to get there. Because, right, it's not like the progression here, right? Yeah, I mean, it's like you can see it 1 through 4, but if you don't work week 1 and work week 2, you're not going to get to week 3, right? And so I think it also is kind of like not a bait, if you will, but it kind of keeps that bait out there. It's like, hey, if you want to do this one, you got to do these first.
Yeah, and I think that's the trick, right? Sometimes is that we can all look at a great formula and be like, that's it, but then you got to actually do it, and first of all, I think the best way to get Tommy swimming more is to get him out of the cabana and get him in the water.
Yes, I know. Tommy, I shouldn't even use Tommy, but I use Tommy Triathlete in my, the spreadsheet that I was showing to the athletes yesterday with the swim, bike, run, strength, and the formulas we we're going to use, and then the progressions and how they would rate and how they complement each other. And I used Tommy Triathlete, so I was talking about Tommy, but one of our athletes, Tommy Bonds, who's been with us for 4 or 5 years, he was on the Zoom call sitting under his freaking cabana in Puerto Rico, sipping on Mai Tais and shoving it in her face. So yeah, Tommy, that one's for you.
No, but I got something to come back with it because, I like to talk to my athletes a lot of times about what I call discovery in the weeds. And a lot of times that's, back and forth in Training Peaks. And sometimes they will say something that really hits me and oh, wait, there's something right there. They weren't even really thinking about it. They were just kind of talking about how they felt or what they went through in the workout and this and that. And it goes the other way too. And I might just be responding and it really, something really clicks for them. And it could be just sort of an innocuous kind of comment or something like that. But this is what I think about a lot of times when you talk about AI and about the human interactive part of things and how important that is just be able to discover what makes people tick and what kind of things they're struggling with, and how, like you said, to get somebody excited about swimming more when they're not good at it. And of course, being good at something usually solves that problem. You know what I mean? It's like people are good runners. They love to run and they just don't like to bike. And we were talking about it yesterday, you know, everybody in the world wants to run well off the bike in a half or a full. And unfortunately, a lot of times that comes down to maybe going, you know, doing more on the bike, you know, getting to a place where you can actually execute that. Because I mean, the Ironman run, as we all know, is a major mystery. And you alluded to it yesterday and we talked about it yesterday, but a lot of times the best runners look like they're not even struggling, you know? So you bring up a great point, which, and that was like one of the huge pieces of not necessarily changing of, what we've always done, because we've always been, run frequently, and our long runs are a lot shorter than most people. Like you get the Be Iron Fit book, and I think in like week 4 you're doing like a 4.5 hour run on a Sunday, and that's never been what I've believed in. It's never been what I've seen. It's never been what I've experienced as an athlete, but also as a coach. Is the best way to be successful in long course triathlon is, one, make sure your feeling's right. And I talked a lot about that yesterday, and some of the things that we'll inform and educate athletes on this year. But it's to be able to, in a 70.3, in a 70.3 and an Ironman and a marathon and a 50K and a 50 mile, whatever it is, you want your fast to feel easy, right? So the goal is to make your zone 2 moderate effort as fast as possible. That goes in the swim, that goes in the riding, goes in the running. You want that to be as fast as possible, right? And one of the biggest things that, we always talk about, it's not, we use the phrase hurry slowly, or we talk about, long distance racing. It's not about how fast it's about how little you slow down. But a lot of that comes to economy, right? That's what comes to in running. And I used the analogy, and people probably think I pick on Lionel Sanders a lot, but when you're on YouTube that much, you're the first person that comes to mind. He gets ribbed for his running form, even though he runs insanely fast and oftentimes has the fastest half marathon period in 70.3s or even in fulls. He's that good of a runner. But then you look at him, right, and you take his running form, because that's always the caveat. He runs fast even though his form is shite in a lot of ways, right? And then you look at runners like Chelsea Sodaro, who was running and winning the Ironman World Championship. You look at Rennie back in the day, who she didn't look like he was trying, right? Mm-hmm. And then you look at Jan Frodeno or Patrick Lange, who I think it was after World Championships and after 70.3 Worlds, so people really didn't pay attention. But the dude ran a 2:30 or 2:31 marathon off the bike at Ironman Israel. Insanity. But if you watch him run, he looks like he's barely trying, because it's efficiency. So if you put him or these like really top, very, very, incredible running economy, great efficiency runners next to Lionel, they could be running the same speed and have the same physiological, numbers and be built the same way. They're going to be running easier because it's taking less effort to do what they're doing. Right. In the same thing goes for swimming. Right. When you watch the most, like people, talk about swimming and technique and what's the best or what's the worst or how do you get faster. No matter how good of a swimmer you are, you've walked on the deck one day, you've looked at a swimmer and you're like, God, they are going slow and cruise. And then you look at the clock and they're doing like 10500s. Right. They're not moving slow. They're just so efficient in the water that's how, like, they are getting every single bit of water to pulling behind. There's very little of them. Then you look at the person next to them who's thrashing like a golden retriever just dumped in a pond. They're working 50 times harder and doing 220s, right? In the same, very much same thing running. They're both technical, right? They both are whole body. So it's about, for long distance racing, it's about, swimming enough and biking enough to where you can come off the bike feeling like you didn't do anything, and then just be strong enough and efficient enough, fast enough
to run your best marathon. Plus, the other biggest thing, and it's a change for athletes when they come and start working with us, but they come around, in terms of not, because most people, it's contradictory to run, less than, 22 miles for, a marathon. Like we said, another girl who won her age group and qualified for Boston last weekend, whose longest run was 17 miles, right? It's like, it's just, it's contrary to what a lot of people think, a lot of people do. And honestly, a lot of coaches do, or a lot of training plans you buy offline do, is that you don't understand, or you haven't fully grasped the physiological cost of a long run, right? Of a long run where you're more than likely running over time to where your form is crap, right? So it's hurting the rest of your body, and you're going to be sore in different ways that you haven't been before. So you're practicing terrible form, and you're destroying your body. Right. I mean, that's what we do when we work out is, we tear it down so we can build it back up again. But you tear it down so much that there's very little benefit to, if any of the workouts you're going to do Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, because it can take you that long to recover. Right. Yeah. Because you overdid your long run. Right. You just overdid it. And it's just because, like, every year, we use the phrase minimal effective dose. We use it a lot. But even every year, like, as coaches, we're not trying to give you more hours. And triathletes love to say that as like their number one, like, I trained 20 hours this week. It's not the hours. It's the intent and the effectiveness of the hours. You might be incredible off 12, and you might be shitty off 20. And that's just one of those things that, again, that triathletes get like all hung up on. Well, so-and-so is doing 24 hours a week, and this and this. There's a perfect dose for everybody. And for a lot of people, that means, again, and what is it with running? 90% of all injuries triathlon come from running, right? You ran too much, you ran too hard, or you're too tired. So you want to go track Tuesday and rip your bones apart, even though you're never going to run like that ever in a race. And you did it with a crappy form, and you ran in a circle. And it's so the risk versus reward for running is just very, very, very low. It's high risk, low reward for a lot of athletes, especially when you can take two sports that are zero impact on your body that become before the run, which is the most impact on your body, right? And you not get to that fresh to where you can rip off. And we say this a ton. I'll say it again. I will take a super fast and fit and strong 70.3 athlete to put him in an Ironman versus a worn down 30-week Ironman prepper who's done 7-hour rides and 5 20-milers. No, thank you. You know where you can find them? In the 15-hour mark, which is a fact. You might not hear it, but it's a fact. And also destroys people's bodies. You're not getting better, right? And so one of the biggest points of focus, again, this year for athletes is going to be continuing to strengthen the chassis in a variety of ways through better economy, better efficiency, focusing on things differently when they run, and then just making sure that they're running well, and running fast and running strong. It's like you get out there, like, what am I to do some, I want to do some mile repeats. Well, do 1 minute fast and right first before we work on 2 minutes, right? Or, run a quarter mile perfectly and fast first before you can work a half mile, and then work your way up, Most people want to start out at, ripping off 800 at the local track or half miles. I'm like, you don't even, I say the word deserve a lot, and it's not to like demeaning you, but your body has to deserve that, and because it needs to deserve it in a good way, not in a I'm going to smash you and trash you way. I've progressed enough to where I can handle this, to where my new half mile repeat or 1 mile repeat is going to feel just like 9 weeks ago when I was only doing 1/10 of a mile efforts.
Right.
Progress to get there. Don't jump there. Don't skip, right? You can't skip steps. You have to go progressively, and it's the athlete's job to work the progression, right? And again, you can't skip parts of the progression. Like, as guys, we know this. We get a box from IKEA, and we look at the directions. We're like, nah, I don't need that. You skip 3 steps, and all of a sudden you figure out that you put together your TV stand totally wrong, and now you go back and do it all over again. Or it breaks, right? You put see, I didn't need those 14 extra screws and nuts that are just sitting there for whatever reason. I didn't need those. They're probably just extras. And then you put your flat screen on the TV, you're ready to go watch the game, and about 2 hours later, crumbles. crashes. That's what happens when exactly what happens when athletes think they can skip steps just because they've got a race coming up and totally disregard the fact that they didn't do the work to get to where they want to go right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the minimal effective dose phrase is always applied deeply to my soul because, especially as I get older and things like that. And I just love what we're talking about and what you were talking about yesterday. And because you gotta, it all depends, man. Like if you've been working out for a long time and doing these things, then you can kind of get into getting a little more intensity and things like that. But if you haven't, you have to kind of like build up to it again. And I talk to people always about running because, this big discussion about, go hard or what's hard mean and what's fast mean in an interval and things like that. And it means what your body's able to handle. And how do you do that? You ease into it, you let it go, and you flow. And, it's almost, I always talk about it as letting your body go more than trying to run harder, because it's just this thing that we still have from years gone by about running on the playground. You just dig in and you go like 100% all out, and you can recover from that when you're young and pliable and things like that. But for now, I mean, it's all there, and now is the time to start working at it, because we were talking about before the call even is like, what is this month? Well, this month is a time to put in work and be ready to train like you need to train a little bit better in January, or you're going to come out feeling all bloated and slow and lazy and shit in January. I'll start in February or whatever. It's just the little things, even when I'm running out and you're talking about that, running the top of zone 2, because I think, the athlete has to understand their body and what they're capable of and what it feels like. And if you're out on an easy run, could you make that a little harder, easier? Can you feel what it feels like to be going easy, but still, I hear this a lot on the bike, you see it a lot on the bike actually, when you give out these zone 2 workouts and it's kind of pushing them a little bit and they're like, damn, that was harder than I thought it was going to be. And I think it's because we hold back a little bit and we don't actually, push ourselves. I was thinking about a concept of like, interval, zone 2 interval typey workouts and stuff. Like, how is it not going to shred you, but how is it going to like peak you up into getting to where you need to be in your zone 2? Like that's your race area, right? So those kind of concepts are always intriguing to me. And lately I've been really thinking about, while I'm out doing my easy runs, about flow. I don't pay attention a lot to my pace, but sometimes I'll look down and I'll be like, man, this feels real good and real easy. And I'm in like a smooth flow with it and good form. And you just go faster. So it's like stuff like that I think you need to pay attention to and really get good at, because, how many, like you're saying, how many people you can get off the bike on an Ironman and start thinking about how those track workouts are paying off. It's about, there was a time, and I think it was Chattanooga 70.3 about 4 years ago when it really all started clicking. I really started to understand how to handle a race and what the training did for me in that moment. And I think those are things that, coaches can help you understand easier, and get you in the right thought pattern while you're working out to understand what that's going to translate to on the race course.
Because that's where it matters. Again,
well, yeah.
It's about being a gamer, and setting you up to be a gamer is going in confident, going in fresh, going in fast, going in strong. And you do that in a variety of ways. And it's not, none of it is rocket science. Like it may seem overwhelming when you read literature, you hear people talk, or you listen to podcasts, or I'm sure some of it was even like overwhelming on the call yesterday, just because, like, frankly, it's probably my fault because I get so excited and then I talk like the Micro Machine Man back in the 80s and 90s, because I love it. Because I had one of our other coaches, Nicole Winger, she was like, I could tell you're very excited today, and I was like, well, it's a combo of being excited and coffee at noon. But it's one of those things where, again, you always have to kind of, you're never reinventing the wheel, ever, right? you just want to add a spoke here, or maybe remove one, or maybe make it wider, maybe make it more durable, right? And then it's not about just changing things to change things. You change them for a purpose, right? It's not to keep the attention span of the athletes, it's to be intentional. It's not about attention. It's about being intentional. And that gets them to where they want to go, because things are changing, right? No matter what, even if there's not new research or science, you see things like that feels right to me. And it's some of the biggest things we've that have been like the core of what we've done as a training philosophy and how we've, progressed athletes and done things is this just feels right, and so you do it and you see that it works, right? And you get great feedback from it, and it's an important piece of the equation, because as coaches, you can't ever kind of like lay back and you're like, the same things are great, right? That's totally fine. But there's always ways to be better, right? And that's the piece that, I think, and I'm sure every coach, works hard at the end of the year to work hard for that year. But it's the extra layer of which, I know some incredible coaches, and this is something that they harp on a lot too, is your job as a coach is to be a teacher and to monitor stress. Monitoring stress is the biggest, most impactful piece of your job. Not just monitoring stress with the intensity, right? Because intensity is stress. Like, you got your training stress score and training peaks, which I'm also not a huge fan of, but everything is stress. From the moment you wake up, you are absorbing or dissipating stress, right? And you can do certain things day to day that help you dissipate stress or help you wake up with a lower level, right, of stress, like great sleep. You didn't eat like crap the night before. You wake up at an appropriate time. I mean, you meditate or whatever it is, you're waking up with a lot higher of a threshold to manage stress for the day. You wake up and you've only gotten 4 hours of sleep and you had, 3 cheeseburgers, some guacamole and, 4 chocolate chip cookies the night before. Guess what? You're going to have a very, very, very low threshold for managing stress that day. That's got nothing to do with your training peaks. It's got nothing to do with the data that you're being asked to do in cycling and swimming, or cycling, swimming, and running. That's stress, right? Family stress. Your kids, are going through a hard time at school. You're changing jobs. You got fired. You got promoted. You're moving. Your parents are moving in. It's like stress. And that's again like where you have to be able to, when is a certain time of season really difficult, like from a planning standpoint, you look at an athlete and we're using our charts to assess and to create progressions, and this athlete needs a big training block in February, or this is what I would do if this was just Danny, if that's all I knew, right? Danny T, that's all I knew about him. Best time of year to do this block would be now because racing. But what I know, because I know Danny personally, and we have feedback and we communicate, is that he's also a CPA, working probably 50 to 80 hour weeks in the busiest time of year, which is February, March, April, right? No, I'm not going to give you a heavy block because it's not going to work, right? So you have to change things up. So it's all about managing stress and understanding how athletes also anticipate stress. Right? Do they get excited when they see workouts that have intervals? Do they not get excited? Right? There's so much to know about an athlete, and so much, it's so much reading tea leaves and understanding people and a customer service business. It's just listening, right? Listening and then applying and paying attention. And it's one of the biggest and most important aspects of being a coach is that piece, is managing stress. But all of that also comes to the athlete, right? It's like you're communicating that I am stressed, right now in a variety of ways. So yeah, I mean, it's, we're not going to I'm not going to go any more into it because it's, it'd be like a 4-hour podcast, but I think maybe we'll link a couple clips from the video. Cause we get a ton of questions about things and about how we program, and I think we've always kind of been seen as the go by feel guys, the go by feel coaching. But it's more so, knowing yourself and knowing what feels right, but it's based on, the research and data and the stuff that we've always known, But you can't make people obsess about that because that's your job, as a coach, but you got to know what feels right and know when to do it. But yeah, it's an exciting time. I'm super pumped about it. We've had a lot of great feedback. And hopefully we can share some of that a little bit with you, in a video. I will say that when I talk on our Zoom calls, I'm talking to family and I'm talking to friends. So I do drop the F-bomb a lot, because I'm passionate. So if you have young ears or you are allergic to hearing the F-bomb, probably put it on mute. Because I do, when I get excited, bad. I drop a few extra F-bombs, and that's just me being, transparent.
It's not too bad. I'll mute it or something.
No. We've never edited, period. We're not going to start now. Yeah, I drop a few F-bombs, and it's just because I'm excited and I love what I do, and that's how I articulate being passionate and being excited about something. That's just what it is. But we're not taking it out.
F-bombs are good words sometimes, man.
They're serious. I mean, seriously.
The most versatile word in the language.
Who invented words you can't say?
Yeah. I don't know.
Who invented words you can't say?
A lot of people, evidently.
It blows my mind. You can't say that. Yeah, again, it's a word. Okay. It was like someone said it, thought it was a decent to make it a word. So now it's a word. So yeah, we're leaving in the F-bombs.
It's the intent.
It is. They're intentional. It's passion. It's because you love it. If I sat there behind the Zoom call and we're like, all right, today, guys, we're going to talk about periodization. First, we'll go through the swim block. In the swim block, we will first cover the feel and force portion of the swim. That's the beginning of your swim stroke, also known as early vertical forearm, or EVF. No. What I say is like, dude, I'm super fucking excited about this. Let me tell you how it works. And then you explain it. And that's how it should be. Okay. That's how it should be. That's also probably don't have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, we do.
Do we?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess. I mean, like me, like I don't have a YouTube channel because I'd get banned with the excessive like F-bombs. Do they even allow F-bombs on YouTube?
I don't know, man. Probably not. They don't allow anything
Goggins
on
is
YouTube.
Goggins is on there, so they definitely allow it. He drops a lot of F-bombs too, and people love him, so maybe I can get the same kind of grace.
Yeah, they definitely allow them. That's like the only thing they allow these days, it seems like.
Probably is. But we allowed you a little behind the scenes, as Ross Kaffenberger said it yesterday, the little white glove experience. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. We're looking forward to more podcasting the rest of the year, and also another awesome year in 2023 with all of you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. You can also find all things that we offer from a coaching and training plan area on the coaching tab or the training plan tab. And then if you're looking to support the podcast, support C26 and be a part of the community, go to the gear tab, buy a hat, buy a visor, buy a gaiter, buy a hoodie, buy a shirt, buy a turtleneck, whatever floats your boat. Buy one, support us, and just as a personal thank you, we had quite a few come in since our podcast on Tuesday. Thank you. We legit do appreciate it. It makes us happy, which we hope hope it makes you guys happy as well. If you need anything from Mike, he's available, CrushingIron@gmail.com. And if you need anything from me specifically, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
Yeah. I'm sitting in a sea of gear right now at the moment, so feel free to order some and clean out my closet a little bit.
Get him out, man. Get him out.
All right, buddy. I guess that's it. Thanks. I appreciate it. We appreciate you. Appreciate you listening. And I guess I will talk to you.
See you Monday.
See you Monday? Monday. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Christmas and travels.
Yeah. Getting back in the Monday groove.
Back in the Monday. Flashback Monday. However they people call it. They do their Facebook pages, like Flashback Friday, turn back the clock Tuesday, wish I was still this person Wednesday. That's what it always says.
I wish I was still this person Wednesday.
That's really what it is.
What's the Thursday one again? Thursday.
I don't know what it is. Turn back the. If I know, I don't do that stuff.
Yeah,
but it's usually what it really is I wish I was still this person Wednesday, or I know there's not a day of the week starts with a D, but it's also a don't forget that I used to be this or did this day is what it also is.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Flashback today to 1984 when I won this 5K. No one gives a fuck.
Wow, you did?
Like, love, applause.
Oh my God.
Up hands emoji. I'm like, what?
Looking great. 1984.
Whoa. I love it. But we do. We love you guys, and we'll see you Monday.
All right, man. See you.